Welcome back to Critic Cut. An interesting discussion is, what is cinema? You know, that word's thrown around a lot. Cinematic. Oh, this is cinematic. This is. Is it just the physical location of the cinema, the theater? So what makes something cinematic? And I think there's a few different ways you can define this and a few different ways you can look at this. I think generally cinema is this idea of combining all these different elements. Good camera work with great lighting, with the whole teal and orange, 3-point lighting or rim lighting. That's all cinematic because I think it's used a lot in cinema. But it's also boils down to a combination of all these elements. Great camera work with great angles and lighting, great story with great writing and dialogue, great acting with great performances and great delivery on the script, great directing and great editing. It all combines to, I think, what makes up cinema. I think there's a lot of movies that aren't cinema just because they fail in a lot of these areas, especially in the storytelling one. I think like a poorly told story can have cinematic elements, like you get a good DP on a badly written story and it's like, well, yeah, those shots are cinematic, but I wouldn't consider the whole movie cinema because the whole core of cinema is telling a good story. And if you don't accomplish that basic part, even if the rest was cinematic, I don't think it constitutes cinema then at that point. But when something truly is cinema, I think it has all of these aspects combined to make cinema, even though a lot of these other things, because you know what? I think a video game can be cinematic, but it's not cinema because it tells a story in a different way, It doesn't have the same pacing and camera angles and like maybe there's parts of it that do have that, but the whole, storytelling part of it, it's missing that aspect of having all the elements together. Because even if someone gets the story part right of a movie, let's say, then it doesn't mean that it's cinema. Like, because if you're just filming on a handy cam or something like that with awful lighting and you get your friends to act for it, I wouldn't call that cinema necessarily. I mean, maybe you do the best job with what you have, but it doesn't make it cinema. Maybe that makes it sound like it's an exclusive club or something, but I don't think that's the case, because I think we've seen many low budget films. In fact, it's probably more often in low budget films these days that you get all the elements, especially the storytelling element, all together in the package to be cinemas. It's just basically all of those elements together. Even if you're just working with what you have, and these days it's hard to come up with an excuse because cameras are so much cheaper, lighting's more available, it's just you and your craftsmanship that's the only thing preventing you from cinema nowadays. But we've seen even in earlier film history that people made cinema with lower budget films, but it's because they still had good acting, they still told a good story, and even with, camera and gear and stuff, they made do and tried to make it, found tips and tricks to work around the budget to make it look cinematic still. What do you think cinema is? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below, and tell good stories.